Welcome back. The Trump administration weighing a ban on flavored vaping liquid. The FDA is expected to announce the ban soon amid deaths seemingly caused from vaping. Public health advocates are raising the alarm, but some say a ban on flavored vaping liquids is a step too far. A little earlier, I spoke with Professor Ilona Jaspers, a researcher at UNC-Chapel Hill, and Jacob Rich with the Reason Foundation about the issue. Here's that conversation. All right, Dr. Jaspers, I want to start with you, since you are sort of an expert in researching this still. Where are we as far as trying to figure out what it is about these e-cigarettes and vaping that's causing these illnesses and deaths? And how long could it take to get answers?
So from the latest that I've seen from the CDC reports, who are collecting all of the data in terms of the actual cases, and they're collecting what these individuals have been using in the last 30 days or so, I don't think the verdict is out yet. There seems to be a clearer association now with THC products, and especially those that have been sort of bootlegged off the market. So they seem to be in the vast majority of cases, over 80% of them. But that still leaves a good percentage of them with having no THC product, having predominantly nicotine products vape. So sorry to tell you, but I don't think the answer is out there yet.
All right. And so, Mr. Rich, obviously, as we look at what the Trump administration may or may not be doing, you're arguing essentially that a ban may not be the best idea.
Yeah, exactly. So when we consider why the Trump administration wants to go after vape products at the moment, it really has nothing to do with the illnesses. The CDC has been quite clear that if you are someone who does vape, you should probably buy your vape from a shop that's registered and licensed to do so on the white market, because it's really the black market products that are causing all the illnesses. The CDC announced that 85% of the people who they have information on, when they admitted what types of vapes they were using, they admitted to using THC vapes. And if you consider the fact that THC is still illegal throughout most of the country, that must be an underestimate of some sort. But the Trump administration is really concerned about child use. This year, about 27% of teens admitted to using vapes at least once throughout the last month. And the Trump administration thinks that a flavor ban will lower the appeal of vapor products to children. But I don't think that's true, because children tend to use flavored vapes at the same rates as adults. And I think if we pull flavors off the market, you're just going to see children substituting to the types of vapes that are still there. So I just think it's virtue signaling at its finest.
All right, Dr. Jaspers, so Mr. Rich is basically arguing that banning these flavors and what the Trump administration might do, particularly for kids on that front, may not have the impact that people would hope it would. What do you think about that?
Well, so I have sort of mixed feelings about flavorings, and there's two things that I think need to be considered here. Kids are using these because of the flavorings. There's plenty of epidemiological evidence out there that are kids that sort of indicate that kids are using these nicotine products now and are becoming addicted to nicotine because they are now available in these flavors. That's been shown over and over again with many independent studies. The second thing that I'm worried about with flavors in these products, and it doesn't really matter whether it's a THC product or whether it's a nicotine product, it has nothing to do with either one of them. But the flavoring chemicals are by themselves potentially toxic, and we need to keep an eye on that. These flavoring compounds are not regulated at all with regards to how much can be in there and which types of flavoring chemicals can be in there. They are very aggressive, they are very reactive chemicals, and we're not regulating them at all. Is a complete flavoring ban the solution? I'm not sure, but we should regulate these flavors to the amount, what goes in there, and which ones.
Mr. Rich, you've been talking about sort of the issues, the illnesses, or in some of the heaviest regulated states with marijuana products in the black market. So what do you think that means, and how the country, the CDC, and the Trump administration, what they should do moving forward?
I think it's quite simple. It means that we need to legalize marijuana throughout the country. The Trump administration has completely reserved in the executive branch the ability to reschedule marijuana. It's by far the easiest step they could do to reduce these illnesses. If you look at all of the states, the CDC has published ranges of how many illnesses have been in each state. And if you divide the number of illnesses by the population, you'll see that the lowest rates of illnesses tend to be in the states that have legalized marijuana. Alaska, one of the first states to legalize marijuana, hasn't even reported a single illness yet. it seems pretty clear to me that this is a black market adulteration phenomenon, and the Trump administration should realize that it actually has the power through HHS and DOJ to completely reschedule marijuana without Congress. So that's what they should do.
Dr. Jaspers, putting the marijuana, I guess, somewhat part aside with this whole black market issue, how much of a concern is that with what we're seeing in the vaping trends moving forward and what we've already seen?
Yeah, so that's a grave concern because we are completely in the dark as to what these products actually do to the lung. So to follow up on what was just said, if we could study actually THC and these THC products in the lab, we could actually establish a cause and effect relationship with these toxicities here. But we can't. Because they're Schedule I substance, even if you are living in a state where marijuana is legal, like Colorado or California, you cannot use federal funding to study these THC products in a controlled laboratory manner to actually really establish, are these E-valleys, are these lung diseases caused by these THC products, whether they're bootlegged or not, whether they're legal or not. We cannot study these THC products that are actually now on the market. We cannot study them in the lab. So I completely agree with the other panelist here. We need to sort of figure out a way so we can actually study them in the lab, and one step to do that is to take them off Schedule I substance.
Mr. Rich, I know you sort of want to leave this open, but the fact that we don't know so much about these vaping products and the technical aspects behind them, doesn't that concern you that we should sort of step back before we just allow this free will across the country? I mean, which we're doing now. But, I mean, is the health concern not a big concern because we don't know much about this scientifically?
It most certainly is a health concern, and that's why we're quite worried about children obtaining these vapor products and trying nicotine at a young age and possibly having a life full of nicotine addiction later. But if you look at much of the peer-reviewed studies on the toxicity of vapor versus cigarettes, it's quite unanimous that vapor is healthier. We don't know the long-term consequences, and only time will tell us that. But the BMJ published a study that suggested that if every single smoker in the United States substituted to vaping instead, about 6.6 million current smokers would not die premature deaths. And that's just looking at the toxicity of what tends to be in vapor products and putting that against cigarettes.
But Dr. Jaspers, just to follow up on that, there is a difference between long-term smoking and getting, say, cancer, emphysema, and what we're seeing with these vaping products, correct?
Correct. And that's something that I actually emphasized from the beginning, from the time we started studying these, is we cannot look at vaping-related lung disease or e-cigarette-related lung disease from the point of view of what happens with smokers. The exposure is very different. The chemicals that people inhale are very different. So why would we expect the same diseases to occur? Smoking, we know smoking causes cancer, causes emphysema, bronchitis, lots of other diseases. We should be looking for something else, and that's actually what's happening now. We're seeing a very different disease that we would never, ever see with smoking.
We don't have enough time to continue the debate. One thing we do know, too, is big tobacco has a big lobby, and that